Well, thanks for tuning in to the second ever episode of the Rent-Free Hockey Podcast. Today we are really excited to shift our focus a little bit from what happens on ice for the 7 Canadian NHL teams and move to a little bit about what's coming up in the future. We're going to be focusing on the World Juniors today and kind of giving you a rundown on the perspective of Canadian hockey, as well as for each Canadian team, what you should be looking for as a fan from that perspective. So, all that's coming up in a much shorter episode than last time.
Right on. So before we get any further, just a quick shout outs to some people who've really done us a huge favor by letting us either promote ourselves or promoting us, whether that's on their content in some capacity, and that's Top Shelf Hockey, Andrew Pilak Hockey, O Nyquist, and the Eastern Border Podcast. It's been really cool to just be able to build some rapport with you guys, and if this is a way that you got to know us through them, then make sure you just give them a lot of love. And if you haven't checked out those channels, they do a lot of hard work creating content. So please do check it out. It's been really cool, even just hear our names shout out on podcasts and stuff like that. Really neat. There's two other things that I just want to bring up briefly before we get into just the league and the World Junior Championships, and they have to do with some events that happened over the past 2 weeks. The first thing that I just want to make note of is that in our first ever episode, we had a magazine behind us from 1954, the Hockey News. And go check out that last episode if you didn't get the opportunity to. And in that episode, or in that magazine that was on the wall, there's a lot of interesting things in the whole issue. First of all, it talks about the Habs goalie quitting and a young unknown player named Jacques Plante, and we know that was very historical about him making his debut. But something else that I wanted to note is that there's a article here actually about Fred Sasakamoose, the first Indigenous player from Saskatchewan to play in the National Hockey League, and so I thought that was a really cool piece of history. Unfortunately, he passed away this week from the coronavirus, and so I just wanted to bring attention to that because there's a lot of people who've been doing a lot to just grow the game and to break barriers, and he was one of them. So we just want to pay a lot of respect to that. Doing that, I'm wearing Florida Panthers here. That's where this person on the back, this my Brady Keeper t-shirt, he's from Pimicikamak, that's Cross Lake Cree Nation in northern Manitoba. And so I hope that you can celebrate just people who've been breaking barriers. Kendall Coyne-Schofield got hired by the Chicago Blackhawks this past week as a skills coach, and I don't think it was just because she was a woman. If you go and watch the fastest skater competition of the year that she was in the All-Star team, check that out. I think that's a moment of just recognizing real, and we're just really want to promote and uplift people who've been breaking barriers. And so with that, we're going to shift to, did you want to talk anything about the CBA? There's been a lot going on.
On the subject of breaking barriers, I hope that there's a bit of a breakthrough coming soon. It's been, if you're kind of up to date on the struggle right now between the league and the NHLPA, there's been some uncertainty with, it feels like, from my perspective, kind of the NHL almost going all Mitch Marner on us and using the media to kind of make some threats a little bit and air out their demands, sort of, was my perspective, but starting to say things like, well, we could be looking at a lockout, things like that. And the perspective was, well, if things are going to happen, it needs to happen really soon. And it wasn't happening. In the last day or two, at the time of recording this, there seems to have been some movement, which is really exciting. And in a roundabout way, this sort of delay may be kind of good for some prospect development of some teams, because an earlier start means it might overlap with some NHL training camps and things like that. But now it looks like the league is maybe talking about pushing things back to a mid-January start, which is, there's bad news, but it also has a silver lining in that some teams are going to be able to allow prospects to play at the World Juniors, which I believe is can be great for their development. Rarely is it ever a bad thing, and other than in the situation of an injury or something like that. But to me it seems like a no-brainer, and it means that, for example, the Leafs are hopefully going to be able to send Robertson to represent his country. So that's good news for him and for. He's American, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the other... Isn't there a Nick Robertson who's Canadian?
Matthew.
Awesome. Okay. I know there's a whole Steve Dangle saga with that, but...
good.
Yeah, so that is pretty much the latest in that it's not all ironed out. There's a lot of work to be done, but the language has changed in terms of kind of what is getting given to the press to report, which is positive because it's no longer some of the threats and stuff. It's looking at more some dates and times and stuff. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And like what we're probably going to say here by the time we upload it could be out of date. So just humor us in that. But essentially, right, the owners aren't going to be able to make 50-50, whether we agree in escrow or anything like that. By not having fans in the stands, wasn't going to be a 50-50 split. And as much as we can talk about they just signed a CBA, that's what the CBA stands on, is 50-50 split revenues. So they would lose a lot less potentially by not playing a season, which is where maybe some of the threats come from. But it's looking like maybe 52, 56 games, January 15th start. So that's really positive. There's been rumors of outdoor games. We'll see how that goes logistically, especially some of the places that propose outdoor games, like California, that would be a lot of maintenance, I would think, to keep ice there. So there's a lot of just really fascinating components. I think January 15th is a good start for, again, letting prospects go to the World Juniors. I think it's also really important because they're going to want to leave a little bit of space towards the end of the season, is my belief. We're seeing in other leagues like the NFL right now, games needing to be canceled and schedules needing to be rearranged. So there needs to be kind of a soft end of the season and a bit of a gap before the playoffs, just in case we see cancellations. So that's kind of where things stand, in my opinion. And it's just going to be very interesting to just see how everything unfolds, but it's very positive. I think 52, 56 is good because, again, if we don't get people in the building, if all you're going to make is by playing games on TV, then I guess you might as well play all the games on TV as you can. If we are able to get a vaccine or something like this where regulations change, then that's going to be positive. There'll be enough space, hopefully, to get people in the building. So, just in terms of other news around the league, that's really fascinating. We heard of Matthews and McDavid skating together a couple days ago. Really cool idea. Peter Budaj got lit up by those guys. Took one right in the teeth. He was wearing a mask, but man, I couldn't imagine taking a shot like that to the face.
Oh, poor Peter Budaj.
Yeah, but he wanted to. He said he wanted to. And that got me thinking, like, with this World Junior Championship coming up, I know a lot of people hated the World Cup, but could you imagine the Team North America if they had a U23 team coming up in the future? That would be absolutely stacked.
I feel like the defense would be would be their strength.
Yeah.
Probably.
So mobile.
Yeah.
Quinn McCarr.
Well, how old now are Matthews and McDavid? I feel like these guys would be aging out soon.
They would pretty much have to have it this year, I think, for Matthews to be eligible.
Oh, that would not even be. They'd make it very interesting. That'd be wild. Yeah, that'd be wild.
Yeah. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I thought McDavid and Matthews skating together is good, but one thing that we've seen from a lot of stars is like McDavid and Matthews are putting up points like crazy right now. And something else that Sheldon Keefe he said about the Maple Leafs is that they've got to realize, right, they need to sacrifice a little bit more. And the way I interpreted that is that, we've got to really, maybe you have to give up some of the points that you're able to get in order to be more complete player and help your team win on both ends. Now, I'm not going to take anything away from Matthews. I used to think he's a little maybe soft physically, but if you go look at his giveaway to takeaway ratio, he is a thief with a puck, and I think that's just like something that really doesn't get enough news. Is like his takeaways are just incredible. But yeah, for McDavid and Matthews and other players like this, I wonder if they need to look at Crosby and Taves, guys who've won, right? And maybe they got to kind of lower the numbers that they're going for in order to win. That's something that we've seen from Crosby. I think Crosby could put up more points than he has just because he's been so focused on being a complete player. Same with Taves. We saw him actually have a career year for points the other year because Chicago's really needed him to do that now, right? Their team was so deep before where he just needed to be a complete player and win, and now his team needs him to generate all the offense in order to win, right? So I think that's a bit of a transition that we need to see. And is there something you want to put on that?
Subject of transitions, I think that is something that is huge for international play.
Yeah.
Guys being willing to play a role that may not be what they're best suited for or the best usage of their skill set. But so I guess I think that is so important because in the World Juniors you have guys coming together as a team who are usually, unless sometimes in Europe they're playing in men's leagues and it prevents this issue, but usually on Team Canada, the United States, you have guys who are like the top dogs on their junior teams and all the ice time, all the opportunities, and they have to come together and take a depth role or something that they're not used to or whatever. So I think that's going to be huge.
Yeah, and like that's where I see someone like Dach having an incredible advantage. Like everything that we talked about between Matthews and McDavid, maybe taking a step back in their numbers in order to see the team win. Dach's got to see that firsthand from someone like Taves, right? Like he's got to learn so much about the completeness of the game that you need to bring, right? And so just to further that, a guy like Shane Wright could possibly make this roster, who's 16. He's not even draft eligible until 2 summers from now. And so if he, who's been touted as someone who takes care of the puck just so diligently, no matter what end he's on, like he's just a consummate professional. If Taves is passing just a complete game onto Dach where he's able to take a step back maybe, and I still think he's going to put up some monster numbers, but like he's going to be doing like everything on ice in order for his team to win. So that will mean putting up points, but that will also mean taking care of his own end. Just dominating, taking the matchups that he has to, right, in order to just prove that he's just a man out there. And so, yeah, with Shane Wright, if he's able to see that, that's going to add just an element to his game, where if he is bringing that to his draft 2 years from now, man, that's going to be really, really incredible.
Yeah, so I think stuff like that is going to have an interesting impact on how Team Canada is built.
Yeah.
Especially because their top 3 centers all bring a different kind of element and are at different levels. Like Dach is the furthest developed, the most NHL ready for sure. But the guys who I'm talking about are Dach, Byfield, and Alex Newhook. And Byfield and Newhook, I'm really, really interested to see what's going to happen there in terms of sharing time on ice. Because I think Byfield definitely has a considerable advantage in terms of skill level, just like high difficulty plays that they can make, that he can make. But he's a lot more raw, and I think he's a lot more unproven. But he's also got the physique that is going to make him really stand out in a tournament. I think I read this morning he's put on 10 pounds since the draft.
Wow.
And he's now 6'4", 225. Like in the World Juniors, like you're going to be playing against 17-year-olds. Because he's not the number 1 center, right? So he's going to be getting probably secondary or worse matchups with the other team. So, but at the same time, Newhook is one draft year older, but I think close to 2 years older in terms of actual age.
Yeah, Byfield's got a late birthday. Like he's got an August birthday, which is like the month before you get cut off in your draft eligibility and get moved to the next draft year, right? So he's almost a full 2 years younger.
And Newhook was playing college last year, I believe,
that's
and
correct.
playing against men. So I think they're going to be coming in at very different places in terms of what they can bring to the table, and it's going to be really interesting to see how the coach uses them. I would maybe expect that it would almost be like a situational, or depending on who they're playing against, even who's clicking a little bit more. And I mean, for wingers, who do you give those guys? Because you have a similar situation on the left wing in Peyton Krebs. 1 year older, big physical guy.
Also center in juniors. So,
right.
It's just like there's clearly an IQ that's there, and in interchangeability possibly. Depending on the handedness or the zone situation, right?
Or hopefully not, but
and same with Perfetti, right?
Exactly.
Who we're going to bring up next.
Yeah, exactly. And those guys are such different player archetypes in terms of how they approach the game. Like,
definitely.
I think, how as a coach, how do you decide who's getting more ice time? Do you really load up on the size and power and go like Krebs and Byfield, or do you know what I mean, switch it up? I just think it's going to be so fascinating to see what's going to happen beyond Kirby Dach being the 1C.
Definitely.
I think it's like almost completely up in the air in terms of chemistry and
who's going to click. Like, it's an embarrassment of riches that Team Canada has on their roster, right? And someone like you were talking about, Peyton Krebs, is like, if you talk about tic-tac-toe plays, he's the tack. Like, he's that guy who makes that middle one-touch pass that, depending on who's lined up on the opposite side, if Byfield sees that initial pass and then Peyton Krebs is able to make a quick pass cross crease or something like that, cross ice, to another winger who can finish, and it could really be any sort of iteration of any players, but I like that potential as a second line. Honestly, that would be a good first line for some of these teams lower down. But there is a lot of depth in this tournament for overall.
Sure. I think
we're talking about.
If we have a third line of like Perfetti, Newhook, maybe Seth Jarvis, I think that's a top line on most teams this tournament. There's one or two who could put up something that would be a clear cut caliber above those guys. So I think that they're going to be so much fun to watch in terms of forward. Do you have any thoughts on what they're looking at for defense?
So just like some things that are pretty interesting is that we've got to know that Byram is a really big personality guy. I think if you are, say, like an Ottawa fan, and you know that your pick was used to choose Byram, there might sting at times, but I think the Sens fan base as a whole has kind of gotten past, we just had to move on from that year, the infamous trade and everything like this. But Byram's just got such a big personality. He's always chatting there on the ice, and I think that's going to be really big in just this whole locker room and cohesiveness, especially having to shut down camp in the way that they have in Red Deer, and just having someone like that who can galvanize a team with his personality. I think that's just amazing. His vision, he was leading the team in playoffs. Actually, I think he was leading playoff scoring in the dub. Let me just make sure I have that. Yeah, so this guy has just been amazing. I think seeing him paired alongside a Drysdale type will be very interesting. I think it could be a bit of a preview of seeing if a Byram Makar pairing in the future works really nicely, because one's left-handed, Byram's left-handed, Makar's right-handed, and we're seeing the same thing with Byram Drysdale. If you're an Avs fan, I think that's something to really watch. I think that could be quite interesting. And just, I guess, as a side note, not that we're going to talk necessarily about all the other teams exhaustively here, but I found it interesting. Anaheim's projected to have a couple more defensemen on Team USA, so they're really sticking to their reputation of being able to churn out defensemen year over year. Another team like Nashville has been known to do that, is just produce a plethora of quality players from the back end. So I thought that was interesting.
Yep.
And yeah, when I was just looking at it, you were bringing up Jarvis and Carolina before. We can go back to the D, but I was kind of looking around at who was projected to make teams and stuff like that. And if you're a fan of the other team close to Anaheim, LA, then you're going to have 7 different players, if not more, to watch for this tournament, which is pretty cool. New Jersey's got about 5 players, and so that's going to be a sign of a lot of talent, I think, that those franchises and those fan bases can get really pumped up for. But do you want to guess who's got the most players at the tournament this year?
Oh boy. Can you tell me the number?
It is potentially 9 players.
Oh boy.
He's property of one of the players you've already mentioned earlier.
I have no idea.
The Carolina Hurricanes.
Wow.
Yeah,
oh my goodness.
They're going to have a lot of players there. So if you're a Cars fan, pretty cool.
Man, how did they get... Like, Seth Jarvis this year he came up in talks to go top 10.
Yeah.
Like, Carolina's such a good team, and they came away from the draft with Seth Jarvis.
Yeah. And there's a lot of pundits where you'll find guys who've been ranked in maybe the 50 overall slot. If you looked over at Russia and they've got Passion who's there, he went in the 7th round to Carolina, and you're just like, are you kidding? And
that's wild.
Yeah. So anyways, back to the defense though.
Yeah. So what I've seen pretty consistently in projections for the lines is a second pairing of Thomas Harley, Braden Schneider. And I love that pairing so much. You have the big guns on the top pairing of Byram and Drysdale, but I just think that is such a textbook complementary, because Schneider to me is like a modern sort of two-way kind of guy where he's not an offensive defenseman where he's constantly instigating things, but he's just so clean. The exits out of the zone are clean. Everything is just he's the tick in the tic-tac-toe, and he just does that so well, and he moves so well. And then you have him paired with Thomas Harley, who has put up just crazy point totals as he's been developing over the years, and just a really dynamic guy. I think that's going to be a really fun pairing to watch, and almost a shame that they won't be getting some more minutes, because I think they're going to be pretty special. And for the third pairing, we're going to talk about this guy more later when we move on to sort of our field guide for Habs fans, but I've seen, there's a lot of debate about Canada's fourth line, third pairing, extra defenseman, 13th forward. I would be kind of surprised if Caden Guhle doesn't take that third left pairing. So, you're not going to get a lot of minutes because you're behind Byram and Harley. Yeah. But, I think that's he just went 16th overall in the draft this year, and that's your third pairing defenseman, Yeah. And then Jordan Spence, property of the Kings, is kind of projected to be alongside him. But, like I said, a lot of uncertainty about the bottom pairing in lines, just because there's so many options, but that's kind of what projections seem to be at this point.
Yeah, and you know what, someone like Guhle, you know what, I'm going to save that comment for when we get to the game guide. But yeah, I've got a couple things to talk about in terms of he's comes from a bit of a pedigree, having won a WHL championship with the Raiders, and so that could be something that is a bit of a intangible, right? Like that we could definitely get into. Anything else kind of on the back end, or
that's it for me for defense?
Yeah. I think I'm gonna circle back to just some of the forwards, just because you had said something earlier and it triggered a little late for me, but you were just talking about how like some of these guys are gonna have to give up in order to perform. But like, let's just talk about some of the numbers that we're dealing with. A guy like Connor McMichael is just gonna look like unbelievable out there. I think he's, well, I want to say he's a lock for the top 6, but this team is just so deep. He's got 102 points in 52 games last year with the Knights. Yeah, and get this, he was a plus 32 and played the penalty kill. So, like, yeah, this guy is just playing in all situations.
Yeah.
If you're a Washington Capitals fan, I think this is kind of like that. He's going to become what we've always hoped and wanted Jakub Vrana to be. He's a good player, but I think he's going to bring that a little bit faster than Vrana has. And same with, like you're saying about Newhook, I think he's not similar BCHL product, Tyson Jost.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be everything that Jost embodied in that hope and promise. He's going to bring that to another level. So, like, those numbers are bananas. And to have a guy like that being able to play on your penalty kill, that's phenomenal.
Well, and Kirby Dach can also play on your penalty kill.
Yeah.
And then if you look at potentially, I don't know if you were going here next, but like in my mind, those guys are sharing a line of McMichael and Dach. And throw a guy like Dylan Cozens in on the right wing, that top line is stupid.
Bananas.
Yeah, absolutely insane.
Yeah. Like, there are 26 first-round picks at this Team Canada camp. Now, not all of them might make the team, but it's crazy. And I think there's a lot of optimism if your fandom resides in one of the picks that's here. And I don't know if we need to go into cautionary tales or anything like that about, say, a player like Curtis Lazar, who did great at the World Juniors and unfortunately, probably due to his management from the franchise, he didn't really pan out quite to the same extent. So there's going to be some things to get really excited about in this tournament. Remember that, right? The World Junior Championship isn't always a litmus test of how a player's going to turn out in the NHL.
That's for sure. Yeah,
but still be excited, right?
Yeah, my Kyle Chipchura autographed jersey rookie card sits in its drawer collecting dust for as serving as another cautionary tale.
Well, I think a player that like will really be able to avoid this, and someone who fans can get excited for, I just wanted to look at Cole Perfetti stats, because you thought Connor McMichael's were good. Cole Perfetti, 61 games, 111 points. He's a plus 49. So think about this. Think about how many points he probably got on the power play, right? So if he got 111 points and say a percentage, maybe a third of them are on the power play, so he's a plus 49 for like 2/3 of the time that he's putting up points on the ice. Like, that's an insane number. So Craig Button, the guy you love, I think you'll dig this, is that he was given he gave Perfetti a 6 out of 5 for IQ, and the only other player he's done that for is McDavid.
Wow.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And he might be on your third line.
Yeah. And relegated to the wing, because this team is very, very deep. Yeah. So I know there's a lot of fans, Pens fans especially, who are really rooting for Samuel Poulin to make the team, watching that very closely. If you're a Flames fan, Pelletier is someone that you're looking for very closely. But there's notable absence that we had confirmed recently. Alexis Lafreniere.
Yeah. It is very confusing to me. I touched on this before, that it seems to be a bit of a no-brainer in my mind. That you, like, the Rangers announced one summer ago that they were going full Nuketown rebuild. And I think it's kind of consensus in the hockey world that sending your player to the World Juniors is good for development.
Yeah.
There are situations where people don't because it's like, hey, we want that guy producing on our team. So the Rangers, who have Panarin and Kreider on the left wing, and announced one summer ago that they were going scorched earth rebuild, are now deciding that this guy who's going to be playing on their third line probably is that is so important to their team that they're going to sacrifice a portion of his development.
Yeah.
Blows my mind. I don't understand.
Like, to me, I think it would be a huge benefit to hit the ground running.
Yeah.
I like Ray Ferraro said something that I thought was kind of worth pondering, I suppose, is that, like, if you look at a guy like Lafreniere and what he accomplished last year, his thought is, well, the only thing he can do is worse, really. Like, he can't really do better, and then because you don't maybe know the psyche of a player, is that going to be an obstacle for letting him attend? Personally, I think it's great. Like Brian Burke, who we talked about and have our own opinions about, was always someone who pushed his prospects, his assets to play best on best, and I think it's good if there's going to be shortened training camp, possibly no exhibition games in the NHL. Maybe that means that the injury risk, right? They just have to cross the bridge to Long Island and see how Tavares got injured in the World Cup, maybe as a cautionary tale, but. I don't know. I think that it would be really good for him to be there. Similar counterpart across the Hudson. We know that Jack Hughes isn't going to be going. So I guess they decided that they were just going to be really focused on the NHL this year. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah. I find that very confusing. Like,
I think he could need that.
Yeah. His confidence, you have to think, is lower than it could be.
Yeah.
After a tough rookie season.
Yeah, and not to take anything away from him, like Kakko, the second overall pick, also struggled a bit. It seems like he's not going to be reporting for Team Finland. So I guess I can understand it, but I'm definitely biased towards, like, let them play, right?
Yeah.
So the last omission that maybe I want to talk about and to wrap up the D is that there's going to be no Owen Power at this camp. Michigan's not going to release him. And if you're a Canadian franchise, then you've probably enjoyed some of your prospects going to Michigan. Kyle Connor is definitely one of those, Quinn Hughes being the other. So, it's going to be good, but we're going to miss out on some of the hype because he could potentially be the first overall pick this upcoming year. Yeah. And we won't see him. But I suppose it makes sense. He was going to miss 56 days of school. Which, if you're playing on college hockey, the whole point you're playing college hockey is that you're also studying as well. So I suppose I can understand that, even though a counterpart like Dylan Holloway, really insanely athletic guy, is going and he's missing a lot of his school.
Yeah, Cole Caufield, they're from the same team.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting because Holloway's had to isolate a lot more. In the United States, it's definitely to less of a degree than in Canada in terms of legislation of isolation and different protocol like that. Right?
Well, and I wonder, I don't know anything about this is just speculation, but so Caufield confirmed a month or two ago that he actually had a positive test for coronavirus. So he has antibodies and by all indications would be considered immune since it's so recent, you know.
Yeah.
I wonder if that affects the protocol surrounding him. Who knows?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just speculation, but
To me, Owen Power is really interesting because someone else that we know that is going to be at this tournament is Aatu Räty, and so he very recently was projected to be the first overall pick. Now it's looking like Power is a favorite. And actually in a recent Sportsnet article, they had Räty all the way down at about the 8th overall.
Wow.
It was pretty, I think it was mostly a hot take, but 7 6 of the 7 top players in the draft as of now appear to be defensemen. So
wow.
Yeah, so there's Dylan Ginter is one player from the Edmonton Oil Kings who's a forward who's considered to be in that top 7 group.
Yeah.
And the rest are all defensemen. So it's going to be a shame we're not going to see power there. We might see some of those other prospects, but that's really interesting, say, for a team like Ottawa, who now has been lumped into the Canadian division.
Yep.
If you, by default are last in the division, I think they could steal a couple games, but probably not enough in this really deep Canadian division.
Yeah.
If you're sitting there, if you have lottery luck, win the first overall pick, and you're picking Owen Power, that's like, or you're picking anywhere in the top 5, then you essentially have to like Dylan Ginter if you think you're loaded at D, which I think Ottawa's got a pantry full of D. Or does that mean Braunstrom or someone like this suddenly becomes available? Tough to say, but like I think it's really interesting now. Ottawa taking Sanderson last year, Bernard Docker, Thompson, players like this that we've seen in the past, and if they're staring face to face at 6 top defenseman prospects in this draft, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, no kidding.
The way that the universe works, hey?
Yeah. Yeah, well, there's a lot more to say, but I would be happy to maybe just give some real quick takes on what outcome I guess you see happening for if you just had to call. We've been talking about Canada, some of their strengths. I guess actually I should mention we covered forwards and defense. We haven't covered goalies, but this is very related to what I was just saying. So their goalies are Taylor Gauthier and Dylan Garand.
Or at least that's what a lot of people project, right?
Yeah, very, very consistently projected, I guess, to be those two. I mean, when you talk about their strength at their other positions, I don't want to, disrespect these guys, but there's no one at Kirby Dach's level or Bowen Byram's level that they're going to be putting out in net. And when you look around the tournament, there's some pretty special talent out there. A Spencer Knight, for example, for the States. So I guess when you think about how this team stacks up, forward, defense, goalie, how typically coachable they, do they run a cohesive system pretty quickly? Like when you think about overall identity of these teams and what you kind of foresee them putting on the ice, why don't you just give me your real quick 1 through 3
of nations and
gold, silver, bronze? Just
gold, silver, bronze. Okay,
just no fear. Take the take.
I think it's going to be difficult to put Canada too low. And so I should be a lot quicker with this. But the one thing, again, is potentially their goaltending. One thing Gauthier was quoted saying is, if he makes the team, he's like, we have to win as a team, regardless. Like, it's not going to be necessarily one player. And it's good that he has that attitude because that means that he's really cerebral. He's not acknowledging that all the pressure lies on him if he's the one starting. One goalie that you didn't mention who's been doing really well in camp, but it's kind of unheard of, is Brochu. He's been having a really good camp, but it's pretty unlikely that they're going to give the pipe to a draft-eligible goalie. Like, we just don't see that happening, but I did want to just mention that he's looked really good so far. So, with that being the caveat, I don't see how Canada doesn't get to the final medal round, and I think I'm gonna give them the gold. Like, this is a really deep team, and I hesitate only because I think Team USA is really, really good. Not only do they have a lot of great prospects playing together, they had such a strong draft year the year before with all those U.S. National Development Team players. So many of them are returning, and so many of them has played before together on the U.S. National Program team. So there's just a lot of really good things going towards them. But yeah, I think that their defense is not quite as strong as Canada. So Spencer Knight could bail them out, but I think Canada's got a lot of firepower. So I see the United States falling to Canada in the medal round. I see United States with silver, and it's pretty hard not to see how Russia's doesn't get bronze. I think Finland is really good as well, and Sweden's got a very respectable roster. But yeah, Cozens is going to be a machine out there, and Askarov, is going to be dynamite, we presume. I mean, he's got a bit of a history, but I think that's going to really motivate him to translate his play into all world. And ultimately, I don't think he alone is going to be enough to hold back the United States, but I think he can definitely make the bronze medal game look like an absolute wash for Russia. So
wow. Well, fair enough. Mine's going to look real similar. I still can't believe that Askarov is a Predator. That feels so strange to me.
Maybe. I think it's kind of genius if you're a guy like Poulin.
Oh, I'm not saying it's I think it's a great fit. It's just one of those when you're reading and thinking about the draft. I typically saw him going to teams picking earlier. It's not something that I was prepared for, you know. Yeah. It's just weird to me. So, but I'll digress. For me, I have same teams, different order. I go USA, Canada, Russia.
Yeah, I can't complain with you taking USA over Canada.
I just think that Canada's defense unit, like their actual, I don't mean like team defense, but their defensemen, there's talent. There's so many guys who are used to just having the puck on their stick, being the guy.
Right.
And a lot of them are, like Drysdale's not going to get the touches he's used to.
Right.
Not even close. And these guys aren't guys who, I mean, Byram, it's a little different. Schneider, it's a little different. Some of your guys on the third pair, it's different, but they're third pairing guys for a reason on this team. They aren't guys who are super elite at keeping the puck out of the net. They're all good at doing so, but their strength and the reason they're so high pedigree is putting the puck in the other team's net. And I think that having like the United States are going to produce so many chances. Like you've got a guy who I feel is NHL ready, who we're going to talk about more later, and Nick Robertson, who's just a shot generating machine, who's going to get his chances. You have Cole Caufield, who is going to get his chances, and he's going to finish a lot of them, who has been playing against men in college for a year and a half, and now against some younger guys, I think is going to have a time. And you've got guys like Cam York, Jake Sanderson, just guys who can keep the puck out of the net, and you have Spencer Knight in net,
right? Who
I think are going to both of these, like Canada's strength to me is their forwards, and I don't think that the States are going to be able to neutralize that, but I think they're going to be able to do a better job working against Canada's strength than Canada is going to be able to do at protecting their weakness.
Okay.
If that's my opinion. I think it's a great game.
Yeah.
I think it's like a 4-2, 4-3 nail biter classic kind of hockey.
I think originally I had the US, but like as maybe it was also media bias and different sources that were available that just made me lean toward Canada, but I can't dispute US being number one, and you've got great rationale for it. And
the last thing, which I forgot to mention, is just that these guys, so many of them have been line mates for a long time.
Exactly.
Like development team, played
U17, U18, right? Like line mates.
Yeah.
Now there's some guys from the USHL who've gone on to play college who are going to make the team as well. Like Kaliev is a OHL player, but other guys like a Bobby Brink is likely going to be in the top 6 or middle 6 role, right? Like,
well, they could roll a line of
2 guys who've played together, and then a USHL guy who's lighting it up,
or
right, in college, right?
So Jack Hughes was hurt for a little bit in his draft year, and when that happened, they had a top line of Caufield, Zegras, and I believe Brink on the right wing.
Yeah.
And those guys absolutely killed it.
Zegras is so good.
Oh, he's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you have like Robertson, Turcotte, Kaliev on your second line.
That's embarrassing.
Like,
good.
I just think that they're gonna click. And I from a Canadian hockey perspective, I don't love it. From a Canadians hockey perspective, I think if that happens, Caufield's gonna be being a major factor in why it happens. So can't complain that much. And then I think Russia's pedigree and just their big guns in Askarov and Cozens is going to be enough to give them the edge over some teams like Sweden and Finland, who I just don't think they're as their big guns have.
Yeah.
I mean, Lucas Raymond I think is going to be good, but Cozens has the extra year. He's a bigger guy. I just give them the edge for that reason.
It's It's hard not to give a team like Sweden very much love. They've won 52 straight round robin games. Like I don't think they've lost since 2013. Last time was against the United States. So the United States is gonna play Sweden in the round robin. So look out for that game, because I think it's gonna be really, really fun to watch.
Yep.
But and also I guess if you were a Wings fan, let's say, you're watching Sweden as well, because you could have 5 players from the Wings on that team. So that's really efficient if you're a fan of Detroit, for sure.
I just quickly want to mention the pools I think are fascinating.
Sorry, I made a mistake there. It's just like they play Russia. USA was the last team that beat them.
Yeah.
And they play USA on a back-to-back, and the night before they play Russia.
Oh my goodness.
And so they're going to play a tough team in Russia, and then USA back-to-back in the round robin.
Yeah.
And so that's, I think, also affirms where that would be a game to tune in and see if they can hold the streak. So yeah.
Like, in my opinion, the pools are crazy. So Pool B, I'm going to start with them because we're just talking about them, is Russia, Sweden, the United States, the Czech Republic, and then Austria is going to have a tough go.
Who is going to see Margot Rossi debut?
Yeah, that's
he
true.
Didn't play for Austria last year. Pop quiz. Can you name one NHL player from Russia? One.
What?
Austria. Challenging.
The bar is low.
Very challenging question. One Austrian player who's played in the NHL.
I feel like you're gonna tell me one, and I'll feel silly.
Maybe.
No.
Thomas Vanek.
Wow.
Yeah.
I would have guessed.
I just learned that this week.
maybe Czech. I would have guessed.
Yeah, I think the Thomas. Yeah. You have the Tomáš Tatar, right?
Yeah.
With, So.
Other, alongside
niche
other
fact.
Legendary countrymen. Who did we discover was from the Czech Republic last episode?
Oh, David Rittich.
Yes.
Vin Diesel.
Yes.
Yeah. Both of those people. And that's a fact.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a pretty healthy overview.
Absolutely.
Why don't we dive into the field guide? So, by that, what I mean is we want to give you a rundown. So if you're a fan of any particular Canadian team, we want to give you a rundown of who are your prospects who are going to be hopefully cracking some rosters, and maybe keying in on a couple of them, and like what would be a really positive thing to see from them in terms of, hey, this means they've taken a big step in their development. Talking about that, and then kind of isolating some teams. I mean, it'll be pretty clear, especially for some teams, of like, hey, if you're going to catch a couple games, you need to make sure you're watching.
Exactly.
You need to make sure you're watching these ones. So we're going to do the same thing we did last episode, and we're going to go from the West Coast to the East. Yeah, why don't you kick it off? Tell us a little bit about some of Vancouver's eligible bachelors.
Vancouver, potentially bachelors. So Vancouver has actually got a bit of a short list when it comes to prospects. A lot of the players that they've had have either graduated or are NHL pros. And so I think that's a reason to be optimistic that your farm's graduated to become NHL players, right?
Yep.
They've traded a few picks as well, so not as deep as you'd think, not as many appearances as you'd maybe hope if you're a Vancouver fan, but the first one that and who I thought at first was the only one that was available was Vasily Podkolzin.
Right.
Now there's so much I guess that could be said about him. He's bounced around a lot in the K, the MHL, VHL. I think it's a lot to do with his willingness to go to North America and play. That has a lot of the reason why he might be blackballed because of the coronavirus hit the KHL so hard. He got some really good playing time in early in the year, put up a lot of points. And so that was a really positive thing. And I think, because Vancouver's made it clear that they want him to come over after the KHL season is over. He's kind of getting blackballed a bit, but he is looking really good when he's over there. Now, something that I don't think we address enough, or the media doesn't address enough, is that Vasily Podkolzin was originally slotted to be third overall, like in his draft, and he fell all the way to Vancouver at number 10, I believe.
Yeah. 10 or 12.
10,
yeah,
okay.
I think so.
And so, again, that's one of those interesting situations, because we've seen players like that take two different courses. We've seen a guy like Jakub Chichurin fall from first or second all the way down to Coyotes, and it's been an absolute player. And we've seen Timothy Liljegren, who's again been projected as a top 1-2 pick, fall all the way down, and it looks more obvious for maybe some of the reasons that he's fallen right in this draft. And Vasily Podkolzin looking very much like the former, where it's like, wow, why did he fall? I think there were some concerns about his willingness to utilize teammates out there, but he's a big physical guy. He's going to dominate.
And I think one factor was that he had committed to be in Russia for a certain amount of years.
Yes.
And so basically a team had to be willing to say, we're okay with not seeing basically returns on this investment for 3 years.
Yeah.
And a lot of teams were picking high up who weren't in a position to be making that call.
Yeah, and Vancouver with the star like Pettersson emerging was just laughing at that decision in a good way, right?
Plus, I think he's coming over sooner. It kind of looks like he might be staying in Canada and reporting to training camp. I've heard that that's probably going to be happening. So that's not 3 years. That's a year and a half. Is that a year and a half? 2 years?
Yeah, 2 years.
2 years, yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of nice. Exactly. I wonder if part of the reason he said that was because things are very old school in Russia, especially. He plays for St. Petersburg, right?
Correct.
Okay. So, as a Habs fan, I've been following Alexander Romanov, and something I learned in following him is that if you're a Russian kid and you're committing to go to going to North America, especially if you won't commit to a certain amount of years or whatever, then the team will look and say, you know what, then it's a better, we'll still use you, but it's a better investment for us to give ice time to guys who we're going to get more return on this investment. It's not the same in other leagues. A team like Modo, are they in the Swedish league? Modo in the Swedish league?
Yes, that's correct.
They really pride themselves on being a development powerhouse and they churn out players. But St. Petersburg is old school. They're like, if you're not going to play for us, you're not going to play for us.
Yeah.
So that's crazy to me. So I wonder if Podkolzin would say something like that as a bit of a bluff. Like, I'm going to give you 3 years. Because he's giving them 2. That's completely speculation on my part, but just interesting to me.
Yeah, so I think for the most part, you're going to be watching Russia because of all the hype that's surrounding Podkolzin, but there's one other player who's likely going to be available, and it's not Jacob Truscott. I thought he could be a potential for Team USA, but he's not going to be at the tournament, it looks like, from what we've garnered from camp invites, but actually Arvid Kosmar. So he's looking at being a kind of middle six centerman for Sweden. He's had some good chemistry with some of the other players on the team. He's definitely labeled as a bit of a playmaker, and he actually has put up 52 points in 29 games played last year. So I thought those were pretty good numbers. The only thing that was a little bit interesting when I was diving into some of his numbers is that this guy takes a lot of penalties, but the good news is that if you're a Vancouver fan, his penalties definitely trend downward in tournaments, in international tournaments, and so that's going to be a really good thing. If you want to tune in to a Russia-Sweden matchup, that's going to be on December 30th. They're in the same pool, so check that out. But I think if you're a Vancouver fan, for your potential finals that you want to see is a gold medal game between Russia and why not Canada, right? And it's country's team, and you're going to see your top prospect play against a lot of these other teams from your country, right? If you're Vancouver's Canucks fan from Canada, then I think that's going to be a really fun matchup to watch. So that's probably what you're going to be rooting for to happen this tournament.
Victor Persson made he was kind of off Team Sweden's radar. Like, he had no history really with their international play. He got he made first cuts. He's listed on their defensive roster, which includes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12. So he's made the final 12.
Nice. Is that a recent article?
Yeah. He made their official, and he was picked in the 7th round this year.
Oh wow!
And Sweden, like, we all know how good they are at producing defensemen, and this guy was picked in the 7th round this year and has cracked the first round of cuts as a defenseman.
That's
so
a good
very
return
impressive
on investment.
So, like, I would say definitely stay tuned. That would be incredible. Even if he makes it as a depth defenseman, get some rotations, in some probably early games or whatever. That'd be really exciting to see. So, keep your ears and eyes peeled.
Anything else you want to say about Vancouver?
Do you know about Joni Jurmo? Do you know if he has cracked Finland's roster or?
Doesn't appear so. I could be wrong.
Cut to these couple seconds out while I'm looking. No, he didn't. Okay. No, so then...
I tried to... Yeah.
I'm happy with that for Vancouver.
Cool, right on.
Sweet.
So, I believe last time we ventured up to Edmonton. So why don't we take the Crow's Nest pass through, or maybe the number one, and pop out at Calgary. Let's talk about Calgary first. So, I think Calgary is quite interesting because they've got a lot of prospects that were potentials to make different national teams that didn't. I think it was maybe a little bit disappointing to not see a guy like Jeremy Poirier get an invite from Team Canada, but again, it's so deep. It doesn't appear that Lucas Fook is going to Sweden's camp at all. Jake Boltman is not going to be part of USA. And someone who might make the team in Russia, he's currently at the camp, is Ilya Nikolaev. And so he's a forward from Russia. So there's some bias towards maybe wanting to watch Russia, not just because of maybe a depth forward for Russia, but also Yan Kuznetsov is likely going to be playing in the top 4. Maybe he's going to get relegated to a bottom pairing role on Russia. But those are two players that you're definitely going to want to keep your eye on if you are watching Calgary. So you've got some incentive to check out Russia, but a lot of Calgary's talent appears like it could make Team Canada. So there's Connor Zary, who's going to be on the bubble just because of the depth. But I think he's definitely got a lot of potential to make the team. So Connor Zary is going to be a reason for Flames fan to tune into Team Canada, and also Jakob Peltier is likely going to be one of the extra forwards there.
Is it pronounced Jakob?
I don't know. Okay. I was just francophonizing it very muchly.
Do francophones do the J to Y?
I don't know. Didn't they turn Joel Armia into a Yoel Armia?
No, I think that's
Okay.
Jonathan. I'm not trying to just hone in, but
no clue.
I think it's Jacob Pelletier.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. I was trying to be all fancy with it, but so there's going to be some depth forwards for Team Canada to keep your eye on. And again, that's no disrespect to Zari. I would love to see him play on this team. I think he's a talent, and it's also a bit of a coup that the Flames were able to trade down twice and still select him, knowing that he was available. So it looks good, but this is a really, really deep team because of the circumstances surrounding it this year. I'd be remiss not to mention Dustin Wolf. He could get some time in the crease for Team USA, but obviously Spencer Knight is a stud. I also think Dustin Wolf is a stud. Like, their goaltending situation is going to be solid either way.
Like, Wolf would be probably better than any of Canada's goals.
Yes, oh, for sure.
By
That's
a significant margin.
My opinion. And he fell in the draft, which was so strange, as a silver tip, which, of course, was where Carter Hart was drafted out of as well, Everett, and so there seems to be a bit of a pedigree there. So Dustin Wolf could make this tournament, but he might not get as much time as you'd hope.
Yeah, you still have to think it'd be really positive experience for him, just in terms of taking reps in practice.
Absolutely. You know. And well, like, here's another thing is that sometimes things happen in a tournament situation that are unpredictable. This jersey here, if you're watching on YouTube, this is from the 2002 Team Canada Olympic squad, and they started their goaltending situation with Curtis Joseph in net. He lasted one game, got shelled by Sweden, and they put Brodeur in net, and he just went all the way in the tournament, right? Yeah. So there could be things like that happen. Tournaments can be really weird, but it's likely that Dustin Wolf is in more of a supporting role. He might get a couple starts during the round robin, but Spencer Knight's expected to carry the mail. So,
for sure, yeah.
With that being said, I think that you're, as a Flames fan, more likely going to be rooting for a Canada-Russia finals. Yeah. You could argue maybe Canada-USA finals, but the likelihood that Dustin Wolf is not going to be starting, I think you're more likely to want to see some of your depth players in or Russia's depth players in Yan Kuznetsov and Nikolaev go toe-to-toe with hopefully Azari or Pelletier if they're able to make the team. I think that's what you'd want in the end, but if you want to see Wolf playing for Team USA, that could be another outcome that you're hoping for. Yeah,
and who knows, like, keep your eyes and ears peeled. Maybe there's a way who your guys end up being line mates for Team Canada. How cool would that be, just for getting to build some chemistry and some things like that. So that's definitely something to look forward to for Calgary.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Anything that you want to add, or should we go up
Edmonton,
up north to Edmonton? So Edmonton is kind of interesting. Some of the omissions, maybe not as surprising that Beriskin didn't make camp there, even though I thought he had a chance. He's represented Russia a little bit before. Kind of interesting, Raphael Lavoie is not at this camp. I thought he was good. A lot of people thought he was a steal to get drafted in the second round by Edmonton last year. He's third in Allsvenskan scoring right now. So that's definitely something to be positive. If he's going to keep clicking there, I guess it's okay that he's there. And Carter Savoy, he is also someone who didn't get invited to this camp. Again, Canada's got a lot of depth, but he's put up 3 goals in 2 games in college this year. I believe he scored 2 power play goals today against UND. Okay. And someone we'll talk about later, Jake Sanderson, also goal and assist today. So pretty exciting stuff. But that, I guess it begs the question, who is there for Edmonton? And first of all, Dylan Holloway is likely going to make this team. He's, as I've mentioned, and other pundits have said, that this guy is just like freaky athletic. So even if he's not the greatest hockey player or has the greatest hockey IQ, like, his innate ability is just like on another level with just what he's able to do physically, and so he's likely going to be carving out a role for himself and The bottom six, I think he contribute on the score sheet and contribute in other ways. He's had the benefit of being able to play a little bit in college hockey this year.
And played well, too. I think he had a hat trick.
Right.
He's definitely been, I think, impressing some people a little bit. I know Oilers fans have been a little polarized, I guess. Maybe that's not the right word, because I think even the most positive among Oilers fans are just kind of saying, well, let's wait and see. But there's a lot of people who weren't and haven't been very excited about that pick. But I think he's a guy who you'll want to watch very closely because, the World Juniors is such an interesting, such a unique opportunity to see a guy's skill set, tool set, and how it stacks up to his most direct comparables. So maybe I don't know. I think I'm a little higher on him than a lot of Oilers fans are.
Yeah, and maybe some of the lull, I can't speak for Oilers fans, but it was pretty much chalk. Every mock draft had Holloway to the Oilers at 14, and so I think they had a lot of time to maybe overanalyze the pick, and he went 14. It was, I think, other than first overall, one of the easiest slottings that a lot of mock drafts had was Oilers getting Holloway at 14, and so maybe that kind of dulled or dampened some excitement around that.
Took the shine off a little bit.
Took the shine off. Yeah. Maybe it was easier to dig for negatives after, reading a lot about a certain prospect. It's maybe harder to see the things that you like, or they don't seem to outweigh the things that you find as cautionary, for a prospect.
He, some of the narrative around him really reminds me of Brady Tkachuk, actually, where a lot of people who praise the player and list their attributes and strengths will mention strength. They'll talk about, a lot of physical tools, and then they won't really talk about, it's nice to hear about a prospect who has a really flashy shot or crazy vision or hockey IQ or skating, something like that. And when you hear about a prospect who it's like, you describe their physical tools and they're good in front of the crease and it's not as exciting. And a lot of, I remember being a Habs fan around the time they picked Kotkaniemi and reading so many things talking about, so the projection at the time was it was going to be Zadina or Tkachuk. And so many people were like, Zadina, just because he has that shot, he has that one kind of special asset. And it's easy to look down on prospects who don't have that, but look what Tkachuk has become already, And I'm not knocking Zadina. I don't think that, it's over for him in terms of development.
He's definitely looked good in the Czech Republic back home. That's so positive.
I just want to bring that up to help provide some context that, hey, just because this guy may not have a super flashy something, that you're wowed by, it's easy to write him off and say, oh, it's just old-fashioned guys who think it's, bump and grind and dump and chase, but they can really bring stuff to the table, and you just have to look to Ottawa to see an example of that.
Yeah, and I don't even know if you realize how accurate that analogy is, because Holloway was a late birthday who went to college and then got drafted.
Right.
And that was the same with Tkachuk as well.
Yeah.
But it was, speaking of, we'll get to the flashy player, because I'm sure Edmonton fans are really, really come on, Philip Broberg. This is our guy, right?
Yeah.
He's going to play a prominent role, likely first or second line for Team Sweden. Nothing but good things. Edmonton's looking like their defensive prospects are just out of sight right now. They've got a lot of great guys on the back end. Anything you want to say about Philip Broberg?
I think something that would be really positive in terms of kind of checking in on his development would be a guy who really is minimizing his mistakes. I think that when you hit a stage like this, it might be tempting to try and do way too much. And he's a guy who is always trying to do a lot. You know what I mean?
Especially offensively.
Yeah.
Which is great, right? Yeah. That's an element that's just so modern in the NHL.
But you can definitely cross a line and end up making a lot of mistakes. And I think that in a situation like this where guys might not be they might not have the instincts like, hey, you know, Phillips, he's going on a rush. I need to, like, I think something that would be very positive for him. Like, we know about his offensive tool set. Something that would be really positive Oilers fans to watch from him would just be a guy who is being smart, being responsible, and contributing in other areas as well. So watch for that and hope that you see that coming through soon, because even looking down the road, you're not going to need that much help putting pucks in the net, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot of keeping them out, being effective as a unit, and things like that. So
excellent point. Yeah, I don't know if he's going to be paired with Soderstrom, the other prominent piece on Team Sweden. Really good defense prospects historically coming out of there. They could be paired together, but I think either he or Soderstrom are going to be patrolling the top unit, and so that'll be really interesting. I think, as a side note, if you're an Arizona fan, you want to see Soderstrom have a good tournament, because
remarkable, just statistically, if any of you are Arizona fans.
Yeah, he's really fantastic, and I think that's great because they got all the picks stripped. So So
it's clutch.
Yeah, if you want to feel sympathetic towards Arizona, which you probably don't, then that's why you'll see Soderstrom on the top line if it's not Broberg. But I think these are equal caliber. They're just going to be spreading them out throughout the lineup, just to have a continued dominance, right? You don't want to maybe bunch up all that all-world talent on one line,
for sure,
and give other teams a break, right?
Yep.
So I guess the last thing that I'm going to say about Edmonton is the finals that you should look out for. So what's interesting about a lot of these teams is that a lot of these players that are prospects for different teams, they don't have prospects in the same pool. So a lot of these finals matchups are really what you're going to be hoping for. And I think because Dylan Holloway is likely, or at least very hopeful, to make Team Canada, and you have Broberg in Sweden, it'd be really cool if you saw a Sweden-Canada matchup. So I think that'd be the number one thing that you'd hope for as an Oilers fan as Christmas Day begins and kicks off this tournament. That would be a nice late Christmas gift for sure.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, how about we jump over to Winnipeg?
Winnipeg, right on. Do you want to start? You want me to kick things off here?
Yeah, want to just go through some of the guys who they have as potentials to crack some rosters?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. It doesn't appear that Daniel Torgerson for Sweden is going to be at the camp from what I could find. Okay. Now, you had an article that you referenced earlier in one of the teams that we talked about where you had stood me corrected on something. But, so it doesn't appear that Torgerson's making the team, which
I don't believe so.
Would have been someone interesting to keep your eye on for sure. But if that's not going to be the case, then you're going to be looking at Cole Perfetti. Obviously, is going to be number one thing. And you know what? Actually, before you get too far with the Winnipeg Jets, I don't know if we should apologize or what for our takes last week, but I heard recently that if some of the guys from Overdrive, Jamie McLennan and Jeff O'Neill, both thought that Winnipeg could win the Canadian division, and we kind of disrespected that. They have 6, or at least 5 top line players,
right,
like number one players. So I'm going to throw on my Winnipeg sweater here, just to say, you know what, I can jump on Winnipeg being number one when I look at it. Neil Pionk put up 45 points last year. Morrissey, I don't know about their depth. They've got a Vezina goalie. I buy it. So if you're watching online or you're just listening, got my Winnipeg Jets sweater on here. This is actually designed from another person from Cross Lake, Pimachikamak, Cree Nation, and so just thought, you know what, we should give them a lot of love. It looks really good, especially if a guy like Perfetti gets a couple games in.
Yeah, for sure.
And I mentioned some of his banana numbers, plus 49. If he ends up centering a guy like Laine, who could stay around, wow, that could be fun.
Well, I don't want to put a damper on things, but I still have my notes from our last episode.
Yeah.
If the Jets win the Canadian division, I will eat my notes.
Perfect.
On camera.
Let's make it happen. Come on, Pomo. I guess speaking of Line A and other picks have made Winnipeg known as Finnipeg. And so if you're not going to, which you are obviously going to be tuning into Perfetti and what he can do, unreal 6 out of 5 vision like we mentioned earlier in the segment, then if you're not going to watch Canada, you're definitely watching Finland, because they've got Ville Heinola. He's going to be likely patrolling their top pair. He put up some great numbers before going back over last year and playing, and I think he's got a real potential to wear the C for this team as well, in my opinion. And he's just a real stud, and he can come back and contribute in the National Hockey League. So when you have someone that caliber who's playing in the World Junior Tournament, then that's going to look really nice. Again, they got a deep pool. They got to play Canada, and I guess there's Switzerland, Slovakia, and Germany who aren't going to be pushovers, but they're going to be able to accrue some wins for sure.
Yeah, so definitely tune into, if you can catch those games, the Finland Canada games. Make sure you're doing that, because that'll be definitely fun.
Yeah, very fun. December 31st. When you want to watch that game, they're in the same pool around Robin. December 31st. So Ville Heinola, did you want to say anything about him?
Well, I couldn't be much bigger of a fan of his. I just love his game, and I think that, like, if you're a Jets fan and you're watching him play, don't be disappointed if he's not leading the tournament in points for defensemen, or, you know what I mean, up near the top of that list. I think that, I'd love it if he surprised me and put up some big numbers, but you don't have to look that far to see a guy like Josh Morrissey, who isn't up there, in the top few defensemen in the league for points, but you know what he brings.
Exactly.
And I think Ville is going to just be an all situations guy. So just try and watch him and appreciate the details, like what he's doing in all three zones. So I think, be thrilled to watch him. They have Henry Nikkanen at center. And honestly, I thought a couple months ago that the Finnipeg thing would continue when I knew they were picking 10th. Obviously shocked they got Perfetti there. I thought Anton Lundell was a future Jet.
I buy it, but I'll take Perfetti.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No problem. But no, I just thought, it's interesting. Lundell is, they're going to be their 1C. Heinola is going to be their 1D. Just, would have felt right if that had happened. I think in another timeline it did, and it makes some sense. So, definitely.
Yeah, Henry Nikkanen, not too much that we could say at this point, but just find little games or things that you like about his game, and get a bit excited about it. He's going to be he was more of a depth pick for the Flames, and he might be more of a depth piece for this Finnish team.
But I think he could do well in that role. He's a very big boy, 6'4", 203. So I think he could really kind of round out their bottom six in a way that'll help the team find some success this tournament. Yeah.
So in terms of games to watch, definitely Canada-Finland on New Year's Eve. That's the one to tune into. And obviously, if you're from Canada, it maybe goes without saying that you're going to hope for Canada being in the finals, I think, in a lot. But if you're Winnipeg, or maybe some other teams that we'll talk about in a bit, you're not going to mind if Finland makes it all the way to that gold medal game, because that's going to be really exciting for the future of your team. Yeah. Right on. Yep. Let's keep her moving.
Yeah, you bet. Just quick note, Winnipeg fans didn't talk too much about Perfetti here, but if you want, go check out near the start of the video where we go over Team Canada. Raved about him a little bit there. Yes. So, we'll keep moving east.
Yeah, so, we have Finnipeg, but I'm about to butcher this. But maybe we should be calling the Maple Leafs, the city of Toronto, Tarome. You know how Finland
Suomi.
says Suomi.
Ooh, tough.
I was pretty brutal. Okay, but like seriously, this team's got a lot of Finnish prospects that are coming down the pipeline. So I'm just gonna list off a couple, and I'm actually gonna peel off this sweater here. But we've got Mikko Kokkonen, Roni Hirvonen, and Topi Niela, and it's possible that even Miettinen might make this team.
Yeah.
So 2 defensemen, 2 forwards.
That's wild.
You want to expound on that a little bit?
Well, I think it'd be really neat and not that surprising if these guys end up being line mates or pairing mates, I guess, on defense.
Yeah.
I could see...
Even top pairing.
Yeah, totally. Like top line, do you mean?
Possibly, yeah. I think Heinola is going to be one of the guys on the top line.
Right.
But I think either of the two.
I think they'd make a very balanced, really nice second pair. And
True.
Honestly, I would love to see... Like, we'll talk about Jarventi when we get to the Senators. He's a guy who I see challenging for... he could play anywhere in the top 3 lines. I think Hirvonen's in a similar spot where he could play anywhere in the top three lines for them. So that'd be really neat if he could. If you're a Leafs fan, definitely watch him closely. I think if anyone's going to be really pushing their way up the roster on Finland and taking on a big role, watch for Hirvonen to do that. That would be really exciting, I think, in terms of seeing him take a step forwards in his development. That'd be a really positive sign because I think the opportunity's there, and I think they're going to let someone step up and take that spot.
Yeah. So Toronto is actually very interesting because they're likely going to be the Canadian team with most players at the World Junior Championships. Right. So we've just named 4 from Finland.
Yeah.
There's some more that I could mention from Russia, but let's not tease it out any longer. Nick Robertson is obviously what you guys all want to hear about and who you all want to see, right, if you're a Leafs fan. So Nick Robertson, what do you think?
Well, there's this weird thing. So Twitter is... well, if you're on Twitter, you know. It's this weird, and hockey Twitter especially is it's just this like jungle, and it's chaotic, and for some reason the stars have aligned so that on Twitter Cole Caufield and Nick Robertson are diametrically opposed, as in everyone is constantly comparing them,
right,
and like Caufield is better, Robertson's better, and it's just this so what I'm getting at
is... It's like the Matthews Laine debate of like mid-first round picks.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think it would be really awesome if Robertson and Caufield wound up on a line together. I don't think it's likely because they both shoot the puck so much.
Yeah.
But Nick Robertson is interesting because like he has spent some time up with the big club.
Yeah.
He's going to have success at this tournament. That's just a guarantee. Yeah. I think if you're a Leafs fan, you want to see that success happen through high skill plays. If that success is happening through, like, he's not a big guy, but he's a persistent, like, hard-working guy. I guess kind of to summarize, what you want to see from him is a guy who's having this success due to just outskilling these guys who are in the same age group as him and not, just knowing a few more tricks of the trade and, things that when you get to the professional level, there's still tools you bring and strengths that you have, but they aren't going to stand out quite as much against some consummate pros. So, watch for that. Hopefully he can really carve out a spot right at the top of the roster and be a go-to guy for them.
Yeah, I think a lot of people that are Leafs fans are going to be really, really attracted to see how Nate Robertson's doing. But I think also if you're pretty hardcore, you're going to be really interested in Rodion Amirov. So, and just seeing how he's going to do, he's obviously playing for Russia, touted as one of the fastest skaters in the draft. And so that's a pretty exciting thing there. So not only do you have Amirov, but you have Mikhail Abramov, who's Vitaly Abramov's little brother, who they're also going to be likely playing in the top 6, the both of them, if not paired together, depending on whatever the coaches find are going to be the best chemistry there. And so, yeah, those are 2 players that you want to keep an eye on. And also, I might butcher his name, but you're going to be looking in net to see if Artur Akhmetiov, hold on, let me try that in, Atiamov, there we go.
Yeah.
Artur Atiamov. Yeah. We'll just edit that.
Yeah, that feels good to me. I think that's fine.
In that, you're going to be looking for Artur Atiamov, who could possibly be backing up Askarov, and so that's going to be really interesting. He might not get much crease time. He might not make the team. A knock on him, he's put up some great numbers this year, but a knock on him is he doesn't have very much international experience with Russia, and they're pretty traditional in terms of getting guys who've played for the program before. So he might not make it, but he's definitely got the talent where I think he should make the team. So there's lots of reasons, I think, to tune into Russia. And so do you want to chip away at any of those prospects there?
Well,
some of your thoughts, opinions?
I just think that Atiamov, something that's kind of small but interesting to me about him is he is 6'1", 157 pounds.
That is pretty non-traditional goalie.
That's very strange. So I don't have anything to say about that. I just wanted to mention it.
That's very Ryan Miller-esque.
I know. So that's what I thought
too.
Yeah,
but like different era right, that we're talking about. So.
But Amirov is he's really impressing people. I'm seeing highlights of him. It feels like all the time.
Yeah.
Sounds like he's been really impressing the coach of Russia's World Junior team as well. So look to see him kind of fly up the depth chart and really get a big role, be their top left winger. That would be really exciting, I think, and would be a good sign for what he can bring in the future, especially if he's sharing a line with Podkolzin and getting that opportunity would be really exciting. So.
Very, very. So I think that's definitely one of the preliminary games that you want to watch out for. Russia and the USA are playing on Christmas Day, so tune in first day of the tournament. If you're able, I think that's going to be really quality content if you're a Leafs fan. And, I mean, it almost goes without saying that if you're Canadian, you might want to see Team Canada in the finals every single time. But you're going to get the most bang for your buck if you're a Leafs fan to see Finland square off against Russia, which is not out of the realm of possibility at all. Like, we haven't really been talking about Finland very much. We haven't really been touting them as a medal contending team, but they're no slouch. They've won in 2017 and 2019. And they've produced a lot of top 10 picks in the last little while. So it's pretty feasible. But
it's feasible. I think if it happens, it'll be due to just great team play, which they bring to the table quite consistently. But absolutely. I think maybe it's a bit of an overreaction the way that they're sort of dropping in some rankings and stuff. But I think it's just the result of they often have some really big guns. Yeah. And this year, Heinola is the biggest gun. Lundell has been playing incredible. Yeah. But
he had 6 points in one game.
Yeah, insane.
Earlier this season.
So, those are good hockey players, but it's not quite where they've been in the past. So, still something to root for and maybe hope for, but...
Yeah, and we'll see how Ratu does as well, being a draft-eligible player. It's probably not something that Toronto's got their eyes set on, but it's another point of interest for anyone who's listening to check out Finland, and we hope that he has a good tournament. There's a lot of other draft-eligible players we're likely not going to be talking about in this segment, but we're rather talking about teams that your franchise or countries that your franchise is going to be really glued to watching. So with that being said, we're going to go to the other Ontario team now, and we're going to talk a bit about Ottawa. So what might surprise you if you're tuning into the Toronto section is that I mentioned that Toronto's probably got the most players from a Canadian team in this World Junior Championship. I think that's going to come as a bit of a surprise for Ottawa, who had going into the draft like 13 picks this year. Of course, they did trade some, move some around, but
and had picks last year, and if I were in the position of being a fan of the Senators, you'd think
you'd be assuming that there'd be a lot. So there's two reasons to do with that. Ottawa has not been shy about in later rounds drafting some overagers. And a lot of players with late birthdays. So a guy like Shane Pinto, who people thought was a reach at the early second round, who's looked so good with UND and with USA. He's aged out. So just in case you're wondering, this year's the easiest year of all. It's a U20 tournament. So essentially, if you turn 20 within the year, you can't play at this tournament. So what makes it really easy about it being 2020 is that essentially if you're born in 2000 or later, you're not going to be playing in this tournament. So some really simple math there to explain why you're not going to see maybe as many players, especially if you're a fan of Ottawa, as you expected. So and I think like one of the things that's also interesting is that teams like Ottawa and other teams have really trended towards taking players who are either overagers or Europeans or both in later rounds. So actually one of the things that we see is that of all the Canadian teams in late rounds, so this is fourth round and later, that we see Europeans being taken 26.5% of the time, so about a quarter of the time. And then we see overagers being taken about 17.5% of the time, or they're European and overagers, again, 17.5% of the time. So in total, you're either getting Europeans, overagers, or both 61.5% of the time in the later rounds. And that has a lot to do with you're actually able to, A, retain rights for European players for much longer than players who play in the CHL. And B, if you're drafting an overage player, then your ELC is going to take them to a much later date of birth, potentially, right? So if you're drafting a 21-year-old and you sign them to a 3-year ELC, it's going to last a lot longer than even if you have a guy from the CHL whose contract doesn't kick in until he goes to the minors. You're still going to get an extra year of control of that asset. So Toronto's really who throws these numbers out. They're the ones who consistently pick players in the later rounds who are still 18 or 17, so they don't really adopt this trend very much, but they're very much about smaller players, faster players, younger players. So they're always, I think, going for the home run, which isn't a bad draft strategy either. Yeah. But it's just really interesting to see that trend over time. So I've gone a little bit too long on that, but talking about Ottawa is there's a few different places I think we could go. We could talk about the U.S. Team. There's Jake Sanderson, who I mentioned before, got a goal and assist today in his first game with UND. Pretty exciting. He's likely going to be either in the top or maybe second pairing. Again, this U.S. national team from last year's draft class was exceptionally strong, right? Yeah, and Cam York is going to have some chemistry with a lot of their big forwards. So I would be shocked, I guess, if... and it's not like York isn't... It's not like he has any big deficiencies in his game where you need a guy like Sanderson to maybe help shelter York or anything. I think they're really going to trust him. And, York is going to have chemistry with Spencer Knight. And I think that he's probably going to be sort of their workhorse. But Sanderson, I think, is going to... it almost would kind of remind me of a Weber Petrie sort of situation where it's like... Maybe one of them is, they're just trying to kind of use them in different situations, but they're both there's still 60 minutes to go around, right? So I think he'll have some very big minutes. Yeah, and why I think I bring him up first is that we know that there's another prospect that was taken before Jake Sanderson, but he's definitely got the most intrigue around him. There's a lot more of a nebulous of who is this player or why did he go at 5, and so I think if you're a Senators fan, that you are equally as interested in tuning into the United States and watching how Sanderson performs as you are into tuning into this next team, which is Germany, and watching Tim Stützle. Yeah. So Yeah, he's coming off a broken wrist, and so he's been rehabbing. He's going to be ready for the tournament by all accounts, but going to be very interesting to see how he does.
Yeah, I think that he's in a very different spot from Sanderson, where Sanderson, as a Senators fan, you're going to really want to see him seize an opportunity, and any responsibility he's given beyond kind of just, your middle pairing guy is going to be a great sign. Like any offense you see him produce, just show off some diversity to his skill set beyond, killing plays, being physical, being mobile, is going to be really encouraging and just kind of give you a taste of why he was picked so high. So he's going to have to really fight and carve out a spot for himself. Stutzle, not the same.
Yeah, it would be maybe a bit of disservice to some of the other players to say he is the team in Germany, but there is Jan-Jason Peterka, who's good, Lucas Reichel, good players to watch.
Yeah.
But again, those aren't Sens property, so you're going to be really interested in Stutzle, and I think you're going to be also a little bit disappointed, even if you aren't a Sens fan, but just in case you had a rooting hope for Germany, is that Moritz Seider will not be attending the tournament. So I guess he's got high expectations for his game in North America.
Yeah.
Another player earlier. But yeah, Tim Stutzle is going to be very, very fun to watch. I don't think... I mean, a lot could happen in this tournament. It's round robin, so there could be all kinds of surprises, but I think Germany's tempered their expectations, and I think it's fair for fans of Ottawa to temper the same. Now, if he absolutely carries the team, why not, right? That would be an awesome, exciting story. It would be really interesting to see. Another thing that's kind of interesting and is really beneficial, actually, to both Germany and Austria, who are seen as kind of the weakest teams coming into this tournament, is that there's going to be no relegation this year. So that means that all the teams who are in the tournament are going to remain in the tournament the following year. So that's going to be a huge advantage for the development of some of those players. Again, if Tim Stutzle ends up being loaned, he could be playing pro next year. But if he ends up being loaned back to the DEL or playing in the A, wherever, and he finds his way back at this tournament, it's going to be against top competition and not in the A pool or something like that. So,
well, and I think it bodes well for Stutzle and Germany in particular because they're not in Pool B. If you're the worst team in Pool B, the easiest team you're going to face is the Czech Republic, and then after that is like maybe Sweden. But in Pool A, they're going to be taking a lot of games against Switzerland and Slovakia, who I'm not disrespecting those teams, but
they've had stronger years.
They're no Sweden, I guess is what I would say.
Who this really does a disservice to is that I'm actually pretty high on Latvia. So actually I've got a bit of a take to go along with this, okay? So one of the things that I think I've seen throughout league history is that I feel like goaltending is a good indication of national program health. So, not saying anything necessarily bad about Canada, but we haven't seen too many stud goaltenders in the World Juniors for a while. And whereas in other nations, we've seen a lot of goalies come playing either in this tournament or coming over and playing professionally. And you're like, wow, these guys are coming out of nowhere. So, an example, now there were already a lot of players coming over from Finland, right, throughout the league's history, but all of a sudden in the mid-2000s, we were just inundated with Finnish goaltenders. We had Rene, who, remember, was Vezina caliber, Kiprasov, right, Tuukka Rask, say what you like about, say, Vesa Toskala, right? Even guys like Niittmäki, where you're like, well, I don't really know how good this guy is, but he's from Finland. There's Finnish goalies everywhere, and all of a sudden you just see this inundation, like a half generation after that of, we mentioned that there were all these Finn players who were picked in the top 10 over the span of the last 5 to 7 years, right? Like we've seen guys, Laine going as high as 2, Kakko as high as 2, right? Just a lot of top players. So again, seeing goaltending being a real big indicator of that. Even, here's a minor example to just prove where I'm going with this, is that Switzerland, right? We've seen guys like, again, not crazy, David Abisher, Rito Berra, Martin Gerber, right? We've seen some Swiss goalies come along, and then Jonas Hiller, who Flames fans you might not like think very highly of, but this guy made an all-star team. Like, he had some banana stats.
That's crazy.
He played 72 games 1 year for Anaheim, and like he was just so good that Jose Theodore got dealt. So like this was a really, really good player, and now we've seen Hischier go number 1 overall.
Right.
We've seen Timo Meier, right? We've seen Kevin Fiala. I don't know if you can quite lump Yossi Niederreiter into that echelon, but like we see goaltending, in my opinion, has been an indicator of health of national programs. So what I'm getting at is Latvia. Now we're seeing a guy like Elvis Merzlikins coming in. Right. Guhle paved the way. That was a really fun World Cup tournament to watch. He was a Lightning product for a while. Yeah. Ended up being kind of a third goalie, Merzlikins, and they've got another player coming up in Kivlinkins. Also for Columbus, and so we're seeing some Latvian goaltending coming, and again there's Gergensons, Balsers who are in the league, but I think we're going to start seeing a surge of
all-star
Latvians.
Player, Yemgas Gergensons.
Exactly. I think we're going to see.
2016 was a weird time.
I'm like with that delay between like say a Kiprasov to a player like Barkov, and then a delay from say Jonas Hiller to Nico Hischier, right, being top picks. Right. I could see a Latvian player getting picked in the top 5 by 2030. I think it's pretty possible. Yeah. I think it's a really good indicator of league and player health. Right. So I think Latvia is a bit disserviced by not having a relegation.
Well, you'd think then there's lots of time, hopefully, for, the U18 is always a fascinating tournament for, I think there will probably be some indications that that's coming within the next, handful of years as the scouting community, develops a bit of a buzz over a certain player or whatever. And, things start to happen on the international scale at the younger age groups. And definitely something that'd be fascinating to keep an eye on.
Yeah. So pretty cool. I guess tying it back in, I talked about Finland as my starting point for that bit of a tangent I went on. There's Robbie Järventie, who, again, reminiscent of Shane Pinto last year, where Sens fans are like, what are you doing with this top pick in the second round? You're picking that guy, and Ottawa's been absolutely right with this guy. He started off with such a hot record. He had 12 points in 12 games. Currently, I believe he's sitting at 6th in Liga scoring. Liga had to shut down. As 6th in Liga scoring as an 18-year-old on the best team in the league for Finland. So he's going to be a lot of fun. I think he should seriously be in the top 6. I've got definitely a bias towards him being there, but like just an amazing stud player in my opinion. Yeah,
I think he's gonna. Before I talked about Roni Hirvonen for the Leafs, who has an opportunity to carve out a spot on a top line, but the player I see challenging him the most to do that is Järventie. But it's sort of a bit of a lottery, like who gets to play with Lundell and have a big role on this team, and if they have success, will probably be one of the main reasons why. So if Järventie can do that, that would be incredible to just really validate that pick even more than I think he already has been kind of undeniably doing so far.
And like one thing that's maybe a bit surprising as a Sens fan is, well, first of all, Levi Meriläinen was taken in the 3rd round. He's a goaltender by Ottawa, which seemed weird that they are taking goaltenders in the 2nd, 3rd round kind of year after year. But you know what? When he was playing earlier on this year, he was 8-1 with a .928 save percentage. Yeah, in Finland with the Karpat U20 team. 2 shutouts at that point. And I don't have any updated stats. It's kind of hard to get a breakdown of his current save percentage and stuff like this. But kind of a bit of a surprise that he's not at Finland's camp there. But the goaltending future in Ottawa is looking very, very interesting. So that was a bit surprised. And I guess someone else with an outside shot, looking in, Ridley Grieg is at Team Canada's camp right now. We've discussed ad nauseum the depth that is in Canada, so it might be unfortunate. He also was diagnosed positive for coronavirus, so hopefully that doesn't affect his chances, but it's the writing may be on the wall for him, even though he's looking like a great piece, a lot of character, brings a definite edge to his game, so pretty exciting. But
definitely I think a very exciting pick for them this year, but I think maybe a victim of the just insane depth in Canada's forward crew. I'd be shocked, but definitely keep your eyes peeled. Even if he makes it as a depth guy, maybe he gets a call up or whatever, get some rotations. That'd be really exciting to keep your eyes peeled for as a Senators fan.
So I guess what to tune in for is I think one of the fun games to watch as a Sens fan, Finland, Germany, Christmas Day. Why not, right? Robbie Järventie, Tim Stützle. I think that's really, really fun to watch. And you could obviously cheer for Team Canada to make the finals, but if you're watching purely you're getting the most bang for your buck as a Sens fan, you're going to want to see Jake Sanderson square off against Robbie Järventie for the gold medal game. Obviously you might want to see Canada win, but you're going to get to see your best prospects on display at the highest level. So those would be games to maybe look out for or root for. So
for sure.
Lastly,
cross the river and go to Montreal. I'm not gonna beat around the bush. I think I'll get right to my boy Cole. He had a tough go last World Juniors. He was sort of relegated to a bit of a depth role. Seemed like he had a coach who wasn't super fond of him, which was strange because he had a really good pre-tournament. Like I think he had a hat trick, something like whatever. He had a good showing, and it was very exciting. And then just slid right down that depth chart. But the coach has just been raving about him. The new coach they have for this year, in a recent interview, mentioned Cole as it was about a month ago now, just kind of their first interview after camp. Mentioned that Cole was the standout, just in terms of bringing another level of effort and just really, really looking like he was ready to play a big role on this team. So can't be more excited. And the way that he has taken strides in Wisconsin this year in terms of being a guy who's not just... we talked about, where does a guy fit in terms of if there's a tic-tac-toe goal. Before, Caufield was just the toe. He was just finishing plays. But he's really, really taken it upon himself to create and just add other whole dynamic layers to his game. And I think he's going to be a different player than the one he was when he played with so many of these guys on the development team, national team development program team. I always get so confused by that acronym, but I think
U18.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's going to be this neat mix of kind of some new tools and guys who he's familiar playing with, and I think a year where it's sort of anyone's year. I think as a Habs fan, like, it's hard to see any situation where he disappoints, but I think you're really rooting for him to just hit another stride. That would really be a promising indication of him kind of having that potential be on the table. I know that last year, people maybe took a bit of a step back in their hopes for him, where coming into the year they were talking like his comparables were like Lionel Messi, Patrick Laine, Alex Ovechkin. Those were the guys that were being compared to him, not just by scrubs on Twitter, but by the big names.
Well, he broke the scoring record.
Yeah, exactly. And last year was good. It was great for someone picked 16th overall. But I think that if he can just really hit another level, in terms of his role in the team and just putting pucks in the net. And that would be really promising for him getting back onto that kind of initial hype train, I guess, or warranting some more of that. So that's the number one thing to keep your eyes peeled for.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess it's worth noting that one of the least teams, or one of the teams that we've talked about the least, has been the Czech Republic, actually. And by all indications, Montreal's got a player there.
Absolutely.
That's worth checking out in Jan Mysak.
I think he's going to have a big role. I was looking at the roster, and I don't know who's going to be above him in the depth chart. I think he is going to be in a position to, I'm not comparing him to Stützle, but in terms of being, a lot of what happens is going to be happening through him. It'll be a similar sort of situation. So, just keep your eyes peeled. It would be really great to see him be able to, find some holes in the defenses and. Because he was a projected potential first-round pick by most people.
He was definitely in that 30-ish place as a sense man. I was really interested in him, or who would be centering Podkolzin and then Kudinstinov. Clearly a monolingual person here. So I was really interested in both of those players. Turns out I'm completely fine with a Robbie Jorventi now, not in the moment. But he's been projected to be really, really high. There's a lot of potential ceiling that players or that team see in him. Maybe they were concerned about his floor or where he's at currently, but there were a lot of people really loving his ceiling. So it'd be worth checking out some of the Czech highlights if you're not going to tune into the whole game. Czech is in the same division as the United States, though. So if you want to get a little bit of bang for your buck, then tune into that game. But ultimately,
tough division though. Tough pool to be
division. Them. Maybe Mysak versus Caufield would be a fun game to watch as a Habs fan. But I think ultimately, if you're looking for a finals matchup, it's Canada-USA. You have Cole Caufield on one side, and very likely you've got another robust defenseman on the Canada side, Caden Guhle.
Yeah, I think there's no way in my mind that Guhle has any role other than a third pairing role. We talked about this near the start when we were talking about Team Canada, because and that's no knock on him, but he's playing behind Bowen Byram and Thomas Harley, who are really, really great pieces. Not that Guhle isn't, but I also think that his skill set lends itself well to be given a bottom pairing role. Not that I think that's all he could ever be, but I just think that, kind of like a guy who gets tall in grade 8, you're going to be the center in basketball. He's going to, I think, get those a lot of D-zone starts, not a lot of minutes, some PK time, that kind of thing. But something that'd be exciting to see from him, that would be a really good sign in his development, would be we know about his tools in terms of his hockey IQ, his mobility, his size, but if he could show playing against guys his own age, just some flair and some flash, a really slick outlet pass or a really nice shot.
So exactly what I was gonna say is that we know that he's got defensive acumen for sure, and he's got some offense as well. But I'd be looking for zone clearings and transitions and things like that, where it's those will be the little things, but they translate into things that are going to be really important for being able to garner ice time at higher levels, right?
Yeah, for sure. And one last thing I forgot to mention about Jan Mysak is kind of cool in terms of, you mentioned before, role models and how they can play a role in players' development. Thomas Plekanec has reached out to his countryman Jan Mysak. They've actually had it looks like he's adopted a tiny bit of a mentoring role there. That's really exciting. I think I'm more excited to watch Mysak than I am to watch Guhle. Just because I know that Guhle is a bit limited in terms of the opportunities he's going to get, and so I'm for sure going to try and watch Mysak play a little bit and just see if he can really just kind of assert himself as being, able to play with some of these big names.
So. And I think as well, like, just to say is that to be careful as well how much you put stock into the World Juniors, just because I say this because Misak's kind of not necessarily on an island talent-wise in Czech Republic, but it's not nearly as strong as like some of the other top teams here are ridiculously strong this year. And so that's just to say, if he doesn't feel like he's maybe put up the numbers or the flashiness that you expect, I think that's not necessarily cause for alarm. It's a best on best tournament, and if he's the best player with a limited supporting cast on his team, or near the best player on his team with a limited supporting cast, I think it's okay to just temper expectations, even though it definitely is an intriguing player to watch.
Yeah, especially being an offensive player, you're relying on puck luck. You're relying on your teammates. Anyone can get cold. I've heard it said pretty consistently that the World Juniors can be a time where a prospect can really help their stock. It's not really a place where a prospect can hurt their stock too much. Unless it's nightmarish or something. But so if he doesn't have the best tournament, I wouldn't be too discouraged about that. Although he did put up, he made the team last year and looked pretty good on the team, and he put up I think 2 points in 5 games. Yeah. So I do think he is in a spot where it could be pretty cool, but also he's a guy who, if there's just not a lot going on, there's no need to be super discouraged or anything about that.
Yeah. So that's a pretty exhaustive look at our viewing guide for each team in the Canadian division, and who you're looking for and the matchups that you're actually going to be wanting to look for. And so that rounds out a lot of what we've prepared for you all today as listeners and watchers. And is there anything else you'd like to say? Or
just that if you've caught any of this through clips, or you're watching the whole thing, feel free to go check out our channel. We've got clips just going over our thoughts for what each team in the Canadian division could pull off this year, going kind of in depth there. Very in depth.
Yes.
So please do that. Feel free to subscribe as well. Go follow us on Twitter, and we'll see you again soon.
Yeah.